a former Trump campaign advisor actually made a decent point. Take a look.
So privileged people, many of whom chose to go and pursue worthless degrees, are getting a handout from Joe Biden. Now, I will at least say this, Steve, and I want to give credit to Jack Posobiec because he just tweeted this out, and he's exactly right. In terms of political payoffs, and that's what this is, it's a crass political payoff, at least the Democrats are smart enough to pay off American voters.
Okay, so look, again, that was Steve Cortes, and it's very clear that he doesn't agree with canceling student loan debt. But, and the reason that I say that he made a good point is because he's pointing out how the politics of the situation was actually pretty smart. Now, I think both policy and the politics on this were smart, at least smarter than not doing anything. In fact, I'm not the only one. This actually is pretty popular. According to a recent national poll conducted by a progressive think tank, Data for Progress, about 60% of the 1,400 respondents said that, yes, the federal government should eliminate all or some student loan debt for every borrower. Along party lines, 81% of Democrats were in favor of canceling at least some student loan debt, 10,000, compared to 45% of Republicans who said the same. The poll also found more than half of past student loan borrowers and voters who never borrowed student loans believed that some or all student debt should be eliminated. Now, look, I see all these arguments from right-wingers that are like, if you paid off your loans, you should be so mad. I mean, you're just taking this money and you're giving it to college students, elitists. Well, they're not mad. More than half who have paid it off or never had loans at all. We're like, yeah, this is it's stupid. Why do we have education that is at this point incredibly prohibitively expensive and predatory? These loans shouldn't exist in the first place. Higher education should be tuition free. So again, popular position, good policy. Now, there's other arguments, and this is where, of course, the corporate press comes into play. Inflation. Of course, inflation. What's funny about that argument is nobody seems to ever ask if giving billions of dollars to defense contractors creates inflation. Nobody ever asked if the Paycheck Protection Program caused inflation. Nobody asks about the billions of dollars in corporate handouts and subsidies, if that causes inflation, or the billions of dollars that we've given for aid to Ukraine. It would just basically a blank check. I think we've given about $50 billion so far to Ukraine, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, help them at least in that way to fight against the Russian invasion. I'm just saying nobody ever asks if that contributes to inflation at all. Nobody ever asks those questions when it comes to guns, when it comes to weapon systems, when it comes to any of that stuff. But when it comes to anything that helps the average person, workers in this country, people that have tried to get an education, suddenly that's the only thing we hear about. Oh, inflation. Oh, it's going to hurt people. Inflation. So it's pretty ridiculous. So now, that said, Cortes is going to continue. And really, this is where he makes an argument that I can't disagree with. Take a look.
Establishment Republicans, they pay off CEOs and defense contractors. So think about that contrast. If you're going to do power politics, and if you're going to do crass payoffs, at least the Democrats know where their bread is buttered and they're going to pay off voters. What Mitch McConnell does and establishment Republicans do is they reward the CEOs of places like Northrop Grumman. And therein lies one of the key reasons why in America, as you often talk about, the Republicans have won election for decades while we are losing our country. That is the reality.
Whoa! That is true. A lot of that is true. Yes, establishment Republican, and by the way, I'll add establishment Democrats, just the establishment in general, yes, all they do is give corporate CEOs money and defense contractors money. That's exactly what happens. Exactly. And so, look, I can't disagree. Now, there is one thing that I also will point out. Democrats just, again, as I pointed out, Democrats do that a lot. They do tend to serve their corporate donors, but they just figured it out that, hey, maybe we should do some popular things too. You know, doing things that people like, that our voters like, that's actually good. And maybe we should actually, keep doing those things. I know, amazing, right? But hey, great. I'm glad you and I, Steve, we're on the same page when it comes to that, okay? Yes, we know the establishment serves the rich. We know the establishment serves the defense contractors. We know it serves the CEOs. And by the way, there's a reason for that. The donors. They're the donors. And so what happens is the donors come in and they buy our politicians and they get a return on investment. That's it. Now, sure, these companies will give, millions of dollars to politicians for like a Senate seat, okay? But then when they received, tens of millions of dollars or even hundreds of millions of dollars in government subsidies or tax cuts, I mean, if you're a company and you're in a system as corrupt as the United States, why wouldn't you buy a politician? It's almost stupid not to. And that's the problem with the system. It's not just a problem with the politicians. So Cortes is pretty limited on that one, okay? Because he doesn't make the connection here between, establishment Republicans, they keep gifting, the CEOs. I wonder why they're doing that. Well, they're doing that because the CEOs own them and get them elected. They put them into power. It's the corruption of that system that allows this to happen. So in order to fix that, you have to change the system. You have to get rid of the corrosive influence of money in politics. You have to stop donors from buying off politicians. And you can do that, again, getting money out of politics completely. You have to go around, of course, those politicians. And again, this is why everyone should be united on this issue of getting money out of politics. Everyone needs to be united on this. It doesn't matter if you're a right winger. It doesn't, if you're lefty, or in the middle, if you're a centrist, right? We should all agree that money in our political system is corruption. And it leads to a system where politicians only represent the rich, their donors. And we have to all agree to do something about it. I think the only way is to go around those corrupt politicians. And that's by doing a constitutional convention, getting an amendment to the Constitution to get rid of the corrosive influence of money in politics, to, state that money is not speech, corporations are not people, and that we should have absolutely no private money in our elections. It doesn't matter if it's union money, doesn't matter if it's corporate money, doesn't matter if it's coming from, the surviving Koch brother or George Soros. Doesn't matter. Get rid of all of that money. It doesn't matter if it helps progressive causes. I care very deeply about progressive causes, but I still don't want their money in there. No, publicly funded elections with equal media time for everyone, for all candidates. That's the way to do it. That's the only way to get rid of the corruption.